This is Dr. Rodriguez for Psych 101. We're looking at Chapter 8, Memory. All right, how does memory function? Well, we have encoding when we have information that we are seeing or hearing, whatever we're experiencing, we have to encode it. We have to put that information into our brain, and we have to store it so that later we can bring it back out. We can retrieve that information and be able to use it. So encoding refers to sensory information going into the brain. So somatic info, somatic is words and meanings. You might hear somebody say, "Oh, don't get, caught up in the semantics," and that's more of like the words and the meaning. Visual encoding refers to putting information into your brain in the form of an image, like seeing pictures in your head. Acoustic is sounds, encoding information into sounds, maybe putting something that you want to remember into a song or into a rhyme, like 30 days hath September. That helps you to remember the days of how many days are in each month. So first we encode information. We take the sensory information and it goes into our brain. And then we need to store it. And for storage, we're retaining this information by moving it into our long-term memory. And how that works is there's a three-step process here. We have the information coming in from our senses, right? So what we're hearing, what we're seeing, so it's what we're experiencing with our senses, what we're tasting, all this. It's our sensory memory is the first stage. It's what you can sense at any given moment. And it only lasts, that information only lasts in our brain for just a few seconds unless we pay attention to it. So it's everything that's going on around us at this second. And there's tons of things that our brains are processing, but we're not necessarily paying attention to every sound or that is our brain is taking in. We have to pay attention to that through selective attention. When we pay attention to information, it then goes from us just sensing it to us processing the information in our working memory, in our short-term memory. So if we pay attention to the information, that's called selective attention, it goes into our working or our short-term memory. So a term I want you to know is called cocktail party effect, and that's when maybe you are at a party and all the sensory information is going in and you're not really paying attention, but then all of a sudden you hear your name across the room and you look over and they get your attention because it was information that is meaningful to you. It's your name. So we are taking in all the sensory information, but we may not be paying attention to it. We have to pay attention to it for it to go into our short-term memory. So once the information is in our short-term or our working memory, maybe we repeat it over and over and over again. Somebody gave you a phone number and you're like, okay, 518, you keep on saying it over and over and over again. That's called maintenance rehearsal, when you repeat something to keep it into your long-term memory or to process it deeper to get it into your from your short-term to your long-term memory. Or maybe information is in your short-term memory, you're processing it, and you make that information meaningful to you. Maybe you use a mnemonics. Maybe you process it deeper through coming up with some story, like when we were learning the parts of the brain and we said, the hippo needs its hippocampus to get around campus. And that helps us to remember that the hippocampus plays a role in our long-term memory and in directions. So you have this information that we're hearing, seeing, we pay attention to it, so that's in our short-term memory. We either have to keep on repeating it, keep on thinking about it to keep it into the short-term memory, or we have to make it meaningful to us by elaborate rehearsal. Elaborate rehearsal refers to just making it more meaningful to you. Self-reference effect means when we make information personally meaningful to us, like applying it to our life, then we are able to bring it into our long-term memory. Where it will go into our long-term memory more easily. So that's usually why you'll hear professors say, okay, I want you to apply this to your life. I do that in if you're to take Psych 202. I ask you to watch a TED Talk and then apply it to your life. So I'm getting you to take this information that's in your short-term memory that you just heard from the TED Talk and bring it into your long-term memory by making it personally meaningful to you. So information's in your short-term memory. You are either repeating it, saying it over and over again, or you're making it meaningful to you in some way, whether it's coming up with some sort of mnemonic or maybe relating it to your life. If you make it meaningful to you, then you're encoding this information to go into your long-term memory. With your short-term memory, you can only hold on to about 7 chunks of information. Really, if it's more than that, our head kind of gets overwhelmed. So I always think about the 7 chunks of information and how it's like a phone number, so 534-2548 is my phone number. I can easily process that as 7 chunks of information, 7 pieces of information. If it was much more than that, then it starts, our head kind of gets a little bit overwhelmed. So we can only process about 7 pieces of information or chunks of information in our short-term memory. All right, so once we pay attention to the information and we process it at a deeper level, it goes into our long-term memory. So if we encode it, work with it, repeat it, made it meaningful to us, goes into that long-term memory. Long-term memory, the information can stay in there indefinitely, has unlimited space, but what the problem is we sometimes have a hard time being able to get that information back out of our long-term memory to be able to use it again. So retrieval is that getting the information out of our brain and into our awareness. So memory is not like pushing play on a recorded video. Our memory is not us saying, this is exactly what happened, I remember every single thing. Really, our memory is more of a constructive process. We make up a story and we fill in what we do not remember. We only remember bits and pieces of things that have happened, and then we kind of fill in the blanks with details that inferences, things that we think make sense for that. So memory is more of a constructive process rather than reading a page from a story that tells you exactly what happened. We tend to make up the story instead. So memory is a blend of knowledge and inference. All right, so retrieval, when you're trying to bring this information out of your long-term memory, it is easier for us to do it through recognition. Recognition is when we have retrieval clues. We have cues are hints to help you remember. So recognition is like a multiple choice test. You see these different words and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I remember hippocampus, okay. So when you see these words on a multiple choice test, these cues, the different multiple choice answers, they help you to be able to process that information, go, oh, okay, no, it's not that one, oh, no, it's not, oh yeah, it's this one. Now, recall, on the other hand, you have very few hints to help you remember. You don't have those like A is this, B is this. You don't have any of these hints. Like if I was to say, name all the people in your class, and that's it, that's called recall. You don't have very many hints. But if I started to say, okay, so there's 5 girls and 6 boys, and the first girl's name starts with an A. So that's more, I'm giving you these retrieval cues. So recall is more like an essay question. You have to come up with this information on your own. You don't have too many hints. We tend to recall information that is at the beginning of a list and at the end of a list, or things that happened sooner or at the beginning. If you have a list of names of people that are in your class, you tend to remember the name that was first and the name that was last, and we tend to forget those that are in the middle. So primacy versus recency effect, we are able to recall those that are at the beginning and at the end of lists more. So if your last name is in the middle of the alphabet, you're gonna say your last name starts with an M, you're probably going to you're probably going to be forgotten more because of the serial position effect, that we remember things at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so recall is more like you retrieving information without any cues. Recognition is you have some cues. It's more like a multiple choice. Okay, so different types of memory that are in our long-term memory. You have implicit. Implicit memory is automatic, involuntary memory. So you remember without trying to. So maybe procedural memory, like maybe riding a bike. You've done it so many times, you're not really thinking, okay, I need to put my foot on the pedal and I need to push down. You know, you just get on there and you just know how to do it. So you don't think about it. Implicit is you're not really thinking about trying to remember, you just do. And then explicit, external, outside of you. It's not like it's explicit is more, you have to make a conscious recall. It's not, you know, automatic. You have to really, really think about it. Explicit, you have to really, really think about it. And so when you're trying to think of maybe a word or what the definition is or different facts, what year was blah, 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 that's explicit memory. So semantics is when you're trying to remember facts. Remember, don't get caught up in the semantics of it. It's the different facts or the meanings. Episodic is a type of explicit memory. Episodic, that's like remembering events, experiences, like your birthday or what was going on Tuesday. So semantics is more like Jeopardy information, and episodic memories are more like, what were you doing on Friday? All right, so implicit is more of that you don't have to think about it type of memories. You just remember. Explicit is information that you do have to think about to recall. So semantics, you know, facts. Episodic, what were you doing last week? Okay. More terms related to retrieval of memories is flashbulb memory. What flashbulb memory is, you are able to remember very, very clearly something that has happened because there was a lot of emotions related to it. So flashbulb memory is unexpected emotional events. For many people that are, you know, my age or older, they really remember 9/11. They remember exactly where they were when they heard the news of the 9/11 attacks. That's that flashbulb memory. It's like a picture is burned into your head. So emotional memories, they can be very vivid, but they're not necessarily accurate. We tend to remember memories that are very emotional, they're very vivid in our head, but they don't tend to be, there can be some inaccuracies in it. Last thing I want to talk about in terms of retrieval is if you're trying to retrieve information, if you're trying to get information to go into your long-term memory so that you can then retrieve it, maybe for a test, distributed practice is found to be more effective than cramming. So you want to improve memory if your study sessions are spaced out, as opposed to cramming or trying to learn all the information the night before. Just research tends to show that we are able to recall information more easily if we're not cramming it into our memory. Rather, there's this distributed practice. You study a little bit on Monday night, you study a little bit on Tuesday morning, and then on Tuesday evening. All these different terms related to memory. So memory, you have encoding, storage, and retrieval. In the storage part, information comes in through our senses. We pay attention to it. It goes into our short-term memory or our working memory. If we make it meaningful to us, either through repetition or through elaborate rehearsal, if we make information meaningful to us, we can bring it into this long-term memory so that we can try to pull that out at a later date and be able to use it.